got it up on stands so that we can hopefully get this line off. Now, I had a look at all the various different ways I could do this, and I think the easiest is going to be to split here where there's a joiner and drain from there. Hopefully the fuel isn't this far up the line, so when I attach my drain pipe that will make that easier. And I know that this section of line here is steel, but it looks like this section is actually copper, so maybe somebody replaced the rear line before and I just didn't know that, because when you look back here, that's copper corrosion, that's not steel corrosion. So I might not have to replace this back line at all. That would be really nice. Gives me one less job to do. Unfortunately, to get this seated back in properly, I do need to drop the tank, because you can't put this seal in with the filler neck in place. And the fuel line that runs at the back here goes over the axle tube and then back to the tank. So I might actually save this job for nicer weather. It's not vital, it's not going to cause any harm. It might just be something I can't do today. I mean, bear in mind, I'm doing this in December, and as you might be able to hear from my voice, I'm just getting over a cold as well, and the ground is wet. None of this is ideal. Anyway, enough rambling on. Let's get this front line off. I'm going to drain any fuel out that wants to come out. If it turns out nothing wants to come out, I'll just do the line. That'll be brilliant. Because of space and all the rest of it, I'm not going to be able to record doing this as it happens. But I've done a little bit of prep. I've got my jerry can there, and I've got a small length of the new line in the new hose, and I should be able to push this into that flexible connector underneath the car. And that should be the easiest, quickest way of doing that, I hope. I mean, the ideal is I connect this up and no fuel comes out at all, and then it's just pulling a line off and replacing. Happy days, I cut the union and no fuel came out, so I think we've got the angle just about right here. I'm leaving that connected anyway, just in case. Got my can here. And now I can pull this. So now I can figure out what I need to disconnect for this line and pull that all off. Do you know what? I'm very silly. The reason I thought it was copper at the back is not because it's copper, that's because that's the brake line. And I mistook it for the fuel line. And it looks like the fuel line is actually steel, so probably I'm going to have to drop the tank after all. Not to worry, we'll deal with that in a minute. For now, I'm going to pop off the fuel line here, and it's held on. It is held on with these brackets, which are basically bent steel, which are normally bolted to the floor. I'm not sure how this one is attached, so I think I'm just going to bend the hooks out the way. You can see with this one further up here, it's already partially opened, and that will just allow that whole line to drop off, and I can copy that. So that line comes up here, and I need to replace this little clip down here eventually, because it's not a very good friction fit in there anymore, but that holds that to the bulkhead, and it comes up here through the fuel filter and to the mechanical pump. If I didn't have the mechanical pump here, then it would just go straight to the carburetor, but obviously because we had to put this on instead of the electric, it goes up here instead. This came out very easily, and the leak was here, where you can see it's still just a little bit damp there. There was some under seal on here, which is one of the reasons I'd missed it, but it's gone through several MOTs and it's never been picked up as an issue. The funny thing is, after I'd removed it, it came off in one piece, and when I picked it up, it broke here. That makes making the replacement pipe a little bit trickier, because it's a little bit harder to line your new pipe and your old pipe up. But that will be the next job, and we'll just copy this shape to make the new pipe. You can see here just how thin the steel had actually got, and it looks like it's rotted from the outside in rather than the inside out. But there wasn't going to be, you know, any point patching this. I know there are people out there that would probably put a little patch section in, but all that will happen is it's just going to corrode further and further down. I think just replacing it with copper is the sensible long-term solution for this. It's what they used to do lines out of in the past, so I don't see why we shouldn't do it here. A few minutes with new hand tools later, and we have a nice new copper line. All I've needed to do for this is a little pipe bender for these very tight radiuses so I don't crush the pipe flat, and a little pipe cutter. I need to replace this hose here, and there's a couple of bits of hose on the old steel line that I need to replace. That's just where it goes into those steel brackets and stops it chafing through. I have some copper left over, which should be enough to do the back line, but it does mean dropping the tank, and I'm not sure I want to do that particular job today. I will do it, but I think I would rather just do this front line, get this on where I know the leak is. I can then finish off that sill, and I can do the rear line later when it's going to be easier for me to do, because right now the ground is soaking wet. It's not a great place to be when you're recovering from a cold. I shall cut some new rubber bits out and we'll reinstall all of this, which should hopefully be very easy, and then she should be good to go again. Nearly there. Got my little rubber protectors on here, which I've used a template from here. This one was missing, but there's a nice spot where obviously it used to be, so that was easy to line up. And a new piece of hose here with some new clamps. And I'll do this end when I've got the pipe installed, because this is easier to get to in the engine bay. Same with the clips. I'll salvage these off here, hopefully they'll be okay, and we'll transfer those over onto the car, because it'll be easier when the pipe's actually in place and secured that way. Underneath the car, I've got the old hose off there. You can see this is the steel line. It's not that bad towards the back of the car, but it does go over the rear axle, and I am going to have to drop the fuel tank to get it out. I think it'd be better to do this another day when I can devote more time to it. These are the old wire clips that were holding the old pipe on, which I'm replacing with Jubilees. I don't think there's a lot of sense in reusing these particular things. And it should just be a case of wiggling the pipe into place and getting it all connected. You can see there's no fuel coming out, so I've got the angle right enough that everything's staying in the tank at the back, but yeah, it does mean when it comes to draining it I will have to probably put it on the floor or something, because it seems to have an anti-siphon tank. All this so that I can sort out finishing off this little patch on the bottom of the sill here and get that all tidied up and weatherproofed. I really shouldn't fix things. Every time you fix a job on a car, you break something else. My coat somehow caught this, popped the glass out, not the backing plate which isn't there at the moment, and dropped it on the floor. Luckily, it's just chipped the top corner, but the plastic is too cold for me to squidge the glass back into it, so that's indoors, so that I can fix that, and then you just push it back onto this ball socket. What a nuisance. Anyway, the only Jubilee clip I didn't replace with a brand new one is this one up here. It's not really necessary, the fit is very tight on here, so it's perfectly fine with the friction fit. There's also a sticky outy bit, I've lost the word for, that goes on there. However, all the other ones I've replaced with these type in stainless steel. This is a bigger fuel filter than I wanted to get, it's just what I ended up having delivered. And the clip down here for the pipe is worn out and isn't really holding it very well. It has been like that all the time I've had the car, I'm not too worried. But just for safety, I've got a little cable tie here just holding it onto another line just to keep everything tidy. Threading it through wasn't too bad. One nice thing about the copper being a little bit softer is that you can just ease it around things a bit better. All my clamps are back in, and the flexi section there also has nice new stainless clamps on, and that's the steel line that goes to the back of the car, over the rear axle and to the fuel tank. A job for another day. I don't have enough light today, even if I wanted to do it. You can also see there's some underseal needs replacing under here, where it's just flaking off, so yet another job to do that I should have done ages ago. The extra clip that was on the old line went in here through this hole, but the reason it wasn't in there is it was worn out, and I've used a cable tie there just to hold that in place. The thing I need to do is just get this side secured. You can see it's rubbing on the steering gaiter. It shouldn't be doing that. That should be tucked up here, so I just need to fiddle about with that and get that secured. Actually, there's a little hole there I might be able to make use of for another cable tie or drill a hole. It's quite crusty in here. I will be clearing all this out when the weather's better. Right now it's not ideal. I've got some spare ones of these brackets, some new buffers, and I want to get all of that off, get all of this cleaned, any welding done that might need to be done in here. I'm not going to kid myself, there's probably going to be some welding in here, but it means dismantling the suspension to actually get all of this out and do it, and that's a bigger job than I want to do in December, or really ever. There we go, all nice and secure again. I've also noticed that the steering rack boot here has torn the end off, so I'll have to put some new ones of those on it at some point. For now, I'm running out of daylight already because December, so this is going to have to do. I've cut off my little tail ends on the cable ties, so that's all nice and tidy. And you know, everything's as tidy as I can make it up here. It's just how it is. I need warmer weather and more time to do this job better, but this should be okay for now. Yeah, there's a lot of work to come on this one, I think. I do have a whole new wing to go on here, so I think when I replace that wing I can do all of this that's in here to do, because the wings on this car are welded on, they're not bolt-on wings, which is a bit of a nuisance. So I can't just unbolt the wing and do the repairs. We'll leave the back line for now. I'm going to put it down on the floor, jack the back end up and see if it leaks, because that's the problem we had before. I don't think it will, to be brutally honest, because it was leaking, you know, there, and we fixed that, so hopefully that's one more problem out the way. We've got the car jacked up, back end in the air like it was before, and I can report happily that up here at least there is no leak where there was one, so that's a win. However, I do have a leak here, and it's leaking at both ends of this. I've got that as tight as it will go, and it's still leaking, so I need to have a think about what to do with that. It might just be, you can see on the steel side here that the witness mark for how far the hose went on is different. Now the problem is it's so cold that even when I'm heating up the pipe I can't get it to go on these very easily. It's the right size and everything, it's just the temperature is just making the rubber too hard. So I haven't solved the leak, I've just moved it to a different place. I can't tighten these clamps any further, they're as tight as they'll go. So I have to have a think. But it'll just have to do for today, unfortunately. I let everything relax and I got an extra little bit of a turn out of those screws. Steel end has stopped leaking. Copper end, I'm not sure, it might still be a little bit. I'm not entirely happy with this bit here, but I really don't know what else to do right this minute. I'm just, what I wouldn't give for a workshop to do this in at the moment rather than being on cold concrete. But Yeah. I found a few other jobs under here that are going to need addressing sooner rather than later, and yeah. Well, it might be enough. This might be enough for me to get this welding actually finished and ground back and sealed up and everything, because I couldn't do that. So at least I've not got a massive puddle. This is what it had already leaked. It's not dripping anymore, so it might be okay. I'll put it back on the floor, and we'll just have to wait and see, I guess. Okay, so bear in mind we're on full choke at the moment. It's not been started in a week. There's quite a bit of condensation coming out the back. Normal old car stuff. The union under there isn't leaking, so that's good enough for me for now. What's very strange is there's not really visibly any fuel in the filter. Now occasionally you will get a gush of fuel and bubbles coming through, and that's that, but the filter looks empty, which is very odd. And this car has always been like that. I've always been told that should have like loads of fuel in it, which does make sense, but apparently not. So there we go. So every now and then you just get a bit of a gush of fuel come through with some bubbles, and that's really it. Don't know why. Yeah, here's an odd one. On about half choke now. And it still seems to be running on fuel vapour. Maybe there's air in the line, I don't know. Anyway, it's very cold. I've had enough of this job. I will save the fuel tank for another day when I've got more time and it's maybe not so cold. I really don't know what's up with this car. It's always been like this, all the while I've had it. Now it could be that the back half of this steel fuel line has some porosity in it, and it could be it's sucking some air in from there somewhere. I genuinely don't know at this point. I will replace that line, just probably not in this video and definitely not today.